times we have seen that time is indeed a resource, and the time needs to be managed. Now, of all the resources in the world that God has bestowed human being with, is the resource of time. But the manner in which time is managed then baffles human beings. Now, we are going to begin right away the discussion on time management. We state, just as we have said in the past, that the course takes 1 hour. I mean, the training on this lecture takes 1 hour. Then we shall offer certificates of participation. Then the training is open to everyone. These are students in universities, colleges, teacher training colleges, secondary schools, and even those professionals both in private and public sector, and even those who intend to join the professions soon. So we move on to an introduction bit of the training still. Apart from those common features of the training or the lecture, let's look at this aspect. So the training is about principles of time management. Principles of time management. Now, we argue that successful and effective time management begins with the principle, a notion that you are to change. So the purpose is to make a change when you are focused on the question of time management. Then understanding how to implement effective management is worthless if it's not linked to a commitment to action. So there ought to be a commitment to action whenever you are thinking about the concept of time management. Commitment should be there to individuals, and that one should be taken seriously, because if you are committed, then you waste a lot of time. So time management is a bit wide training, but I've picked on a core components, core areas that I want us to understand and I want us to study this morning. We talk about another aspect on time management. Those are the learning outcomes. So we have the learning outcomes there. And we are saying that by the end of this training, the trainee should be able to explain the principles of time management. So you to explain the principles of time management and how these principles are applicable to our day-to-day life. So these principles are core because they're the benchmark, they're the guide towards management of time. And that's why after the training, then we expect that you as a trainee, you explain these principles of time and apply them to day-to-day life. Now, you can only explain these principles after attending this session or this training. But before we move on to the major principles of time management, let's define the concept of time management, explain it and see how it is defined and what are the key features of the definition. Now, we argue that time management is the process of planning and exercising conscious control of time spent on specific activities, especially to increase effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. So you are planning, exercising, conscious control of time. So you first of all plan, you exercise conscious control of time you spend on specific activities to increase effectiveness, efficiency, and productivity. So the question of time management is about increasing the productivity, efficiency, and the effectiveness. But this aspect should be planned for. You need to have a clear mindset, about the time you are going to spend. Now, we move on to the principle number 1 is that know how you spend your time. You need to know how to spend your time, whether you are eating, whether you are doing household chores, or sometimes when you are traveling, at school, at college, in the house, in a public vehicle, in a private vehicle, on the road. You need to know how you spend your time. So by knowing how to spend your time, then you need to keep a time log, which is a helpful way to determine how you are using your time. So keep a time log like a diary. You can keep a diary, you can have a diary on how your time will be spent from one activity to the other, so that you know by this time you should have done this activity and so forth. Then start by recording what you are doing for 15 minutes intervals for a week or two. So you record what you are planning to do for a week or two, then find out or evaluate the results of what you have recorded. So you need to record down on a piece of paper. You can record on a phone, in a diary, and the other maybe electronic gadgets like computer, laptops, and the tablets. So know how you spend your time. That's the first thing, the first principle, a very important principle. So then we have the second item, or the second principle. Managing your time effectively requires a distinction between what is important and what is urgent. That's a powerful quote by Mackenzie, 1990. So you manage your time effectively by having a distinction between what is important and what is urgent. And experts agree that the most important tasks usually are the most urgent. So you look at what is the most important task and what is the most urgent. Then you think of, if the task is urgent, sometimes is not important. So weigh between those two tasks. Say, for example, you are planning for the exam, to sit for the exam in the afternoon. Then you also want to travel to see your parents who are living in the village in the afternoon. Which is the most important item, and which is the most important or the most urgent task there? So you need to think about these tasks and find out which is the most important and which is the most urgent. Then begin with the most urgent task, most important task. But we have made a quote here that experts agree that the most important tasks usually are not the most urgent tasks. Then always record your information on the tool itself. Jotting notes elsewhere, what have to be transferred later in, is inefficient. So you need to review your planning tool daily. So if the tool is a diary, then review that tool, because things keep on changing. Activities keep on changing. So as the activities keep on changing, then should you also review the planning tool that you have, maybe you have recorded in the diary. Then you need also to carry this tool with you. because this is the tool that will indicate how you are going to manage your time. So the tool will indicate how the time will be managed. Then remember to keep a list of your priorities in your planning tool and refer to it often. So you need to prioritize, have the priority of things you want to do. So priority is very important because it's with the priority then you know which item is needed urgently to be handled. So have the priorities right and carry along with yourself this tool on time management. Sometimes it might not be practical carrying this tool, but if you have many activities to partake in a day, it's not you need to have this tool with you. It's not that you carry the tool always. Sometimes you might have less activity that you can just remember by simply looking at the clock. But there comes a time when activities become many. So you need to walk around with the diary or the material that you have recorded, the activities you need to partake on a given day, on a given time, or on a given period. So we have talked about the issue of the planning tool. The next is that you have to schedule. You need to schedule your time. So even the busiest people find time for what they want to do and they feel is important. So you need to give a schedule of your time, and the scheduling is not just recording what you have to do. It's also making a time commitment to the things you want to do. So you make a time commitment of the things that you want to do. Sometimes you schedule and fail to do those things. So it is quite important that you schedule these items and have a commitment of partaking those particular activities you have put on your schedule or schedule of activities. So schedule has to do with the commitment. People need to be committed. You don't schedule, then you lack what is called commitment. Have the commitment. You can schedule, but if you lack commitment, then it just paints on paper. It does not help anyone. It doesn't actually help you as an individual. And it was a total waste of time scheduling these activities or putting them on a schedule. Then we have another concept which is called delegation. Another principle is delegation, which entails assigning responsibility for a task to someone to free up some of your time for tasks that require your expertise. So you free up some of your time so that you take part in tasks that they require your expertise. So then delegation begins by identifying the tasks that others can do and then selecting the appropriate person or persons to do them. So delegation is not a weakness. Delegation has to do by you assign tasks to people who can help you and the people maybe who have the knowledge on that particular line of activity. So delegation is not really a weakness. Delegation is about getting or freeing some time, then you get more time to tasks that require your participation, that require your expertise much more than the general tasks. So there are tasks that require a lot of skills and knowledge. So when you free this time by delegating, then you'll get an opportunity to handle other tasks quite effectively. I want you to take some break, some short session of a break there at that point. Then think about the activity that you have just talked about, the principle that we have talked about. If you can remember the principles that we have talked about, the 3 or 4 principles that we have talked about, then we pick up from there. Now, you must have the thought of such a thing that we have just talked about as having a schedule and delegation, among others. So we shall move on to another bit of our discussion. So we have the next discussion item, and that is procrastination. So we are looking at this aspect of procrastinating. So we are saying that you stop procrastinating. Stop procrastinating. So what is procrastination? What is to procrastinate? To procrastinate is to put off tasks for a variety of reasons. So you suspend or you postpone some activities. You postpone some activities that you are supposed to handle. And sometimes it is said that procrastination is a thief of time. So when you suspend or you postpone this task, then you are stealing your own time. So it's a thief of time. It steals our time. Therefore, we need to avoid the concept or the question of procrastinating a lot. So this means that you may be putting off tasks for a variety of reasons. Perhaps the task seems overwhelming or unpleasant. So tasks might seem overwhelming or unpleasant. Many times, then you keep them off for a later time. But you see, when you keep all these tasks and these duties, then you reach a point, then you fail to partake these tasks because you are now having other major and important tasks to perform. So stop procrastination, stop postponing tasks that you are supposed to partake at a given time. So then, to avoid the concept of postponing these tasks, then break down the tasks into smaller segments. You break down the task into smaller segments that require less time commitment and result in specific realistic deadlines. So break down the task into smaller segments that require less time commitment and result in specific realistic deadlines. So you break tasks into smaller portions, smaller parts, smaller bits. That's what I'm trying to say. Then if you are having a trouble getting started, you may need to complete preparatory tasks such as collecting materials or organizing your notes. So if you are having some trouble getting started, you may need to complete a preparatory task such as collecting materials or organizing your notes. So you can organize your notes on how you are going to partake those given tasks or duties for purposes of not postponing them. So procrastination should be avoided at all means so that you don't suspend tasks without good reasons. So then we have this question of multitasking. Some people multitask. What is multitask? Multitasking is about performing many duties at the same time. You take, like, you want to accomplish 3 duties which are so engaging at the same time, at the same hour. So avoid the question of multitasking. Multitasking is not the best way to go. So psychological studies have shown that multitasking does not actually save time. Does not save time. In fact, if you multitask, you want to teach, you want to write notes, you want to, say, for example, talk, you want to listen to people, you want to pack some items in the house, you want to sweep the house. So that's what you are referring to as multitask. You want to switch from one activity to the other. You pick, if the activity takes 2 hours, then you want to pick 10 minutes for this activity, 10 minutes, 20 minutes to different activities, then you want to finish them within 2 hours or 3 hours. No. That one means that you not be thorough and you not do the right thing. So you lose time when switching from one task to another, resulting in a loss of productivity. So you lose time when you switch from one task to the other. And by doing that, you lose what is called productivity. You not be productive, you not be efficient. You lose productivity. Because when you switch from one task to the other, then it will look at that time you are switching. You are also spending some minutes, some hours to switch, to change over. So by changing over those tasks, then you find out that you will be wasting some time. Some time will be wasted. So it's good that you don't multitask. You stick to one activity, one duty, finish it, then move on to another task. That's our argument in this session. Then routine multitasking may lead to difficulty in concentrating and maintaining focus when needed. So you lose time, you lose concentration, you not concentrate, you not maintain focus that is needed by you. You lose focus that is needed by you. So focus is lost by you as someone who is trying to multitask. So those are the effects of multitasking. So we are advised not to multitask. You don't actually have to take different tasks at the same time, and you want to complete them very fast, then switch to another task. No, it is not advisable. That is a bad habit in time management. So the principle of time management about multitasking cautions us on that we should avoid at all costs the concept of multitasking. You have seen some people on the computer, somebody is working on the computer, then you see this person is having a computer, and on that computer is sending emails, is typing notes, is attending a meeting, is typing many items on the computer. So that's the question of multitasking that we are talking about when you are using a computer. But sometimes in a computer, you can multitask and do the right thing, but you need to be very careful that it is not advisable at all. At all. Now, I want to push here this photo in the. So look at this photo of somebody who is multitasking. Just look at that photo and try to understand what this guy or this person is doing. Take some 2 minutes and look at the photo keenly. Then we shall proceed. Now, you should have looked at the photo and interacted with the photo keenly. Now, when you look at that very photo, you find there are two people. One is standing, the other person is seated. Then I want you to take time and look at the table, how the table of this individual, this person looks like. The table presented to us looks messy. It has a lot of books, a lot of papers, and it is just packed with a lot of materials, writing materials. There's a laptop on the other end. The person is taking a call, is making a phone call or is receiving a phone call. And when you look at the background, there are books in the shelf. There are many books in the shelf. There are a number of books in the shelves. Then there's somebody who has just come to, maybe is wondering what this guy is doing. So when you look at that photo, it tells you the effects of multitasking, the consequences of multitasking. You'll have a shrubby, messy, and a disorganized table that makes you difficult as an individual to find out which item to start with. Maybe, so you see, he's using a laptop. He's also making a call, and he's also having some books on the table. Maybe he's writing something, and not just one book, but many books and many papers splashed all over the table. So those are some of the challenges of multitasking. You'll have a very dirty working area, and once you have a dirty working area, then that attracts diseases. It attracts what we call disorganization. You will not be organized. So you want to be organized when you have such kind of a table. Sorry for that. So you can't be organized at all. At all. The next is that you have to avoid what we call time wasters. Avoid time wasters. So there are things that can waste your time, and I'm referring to these things as the time wasters. So there are time wasters, and the time wasters in this case can be, you can avoid the time wasters through the following: using voicemail and set aside time to return calls. So you can have the voicemail on your phone. Then you go back to the calls at a later time if you are busy. Then avoid small talks. Small and unnecessary talks should be avoided with the immediate effects. Stay focused on the reason when you are doing the calls on phone. Then you can stand up while you are talking on phone. You are more likely to keep the conversation brief. So if you keep the conversation brief, then take any necessary action immediately following the call. So you take necessary action when you have received the call. So then you can also just, if you are so busy, you can just set aside time of the day for receiving the calls and let others know when you are available. People will understand. Then keep phone numbers readily available near the telephone, so that whenever you want to call, you have a telephone booth, you want to call, then you basically don't have to look for the phone numbers, in your bag, on your laptop, everywhere. So you need to have an organized way in which you keep the phone numbers of the people that you normally communicate with on a day-to-day basis. So we have talked about the time wasters in terms of making calls and communication, but there are many other time wasters that you need to avoid in our life. There are things that waste our time. Say, for example, you then you get some activities, but certain activities that come in, and when they come in, they come to disrupt our activity. So you need to be very careful on these issues, because these time wasters sometimes will delay us from performing very important activities. So the best way you can handle the time wasters is by avoiding them or keeping off from these issues of time wasting. Now, you cannot be thorough if you entertain such aspects of time wasters. Now, then we move on to something else. The question of responding versus reacting. Respond versus react. Now, when you are faced with the moment of decision making, what are you supposed to do? The moment of decision making, what do? Do you react or you respond? So the best way is to respond, you don't react. So reacting has to do with a lot of emotions. So you pause, you need to pause and take a moment to think about the issue before you respond. Don't react. People who react, they don't stop to think about consequences of reacting about an issue. They remember what is most important to you and they do what will help you get it. For example, if exercise is a top priority for you, don't let a sudden fear about grade prevent you from exercising. Be ready to reduce the amount of time, but don't compromise on your health. Don't let mind games in which you get justification get in the way or lead you astray. So basically what you are saying is that whenever you are faced with the concept of decision making, you need to respond and don't react. Just respond, don't react. So if you react, then you waste a lot of time. By the time you come to an issue to sort it out, then you have wasted a couple of hours or minutes. So respond versus react. Responding calls for thinking. Responding calls for logical thought. Responding calls for concentration. And even it calls for what we call focus. So the other principle of time management is organize your environment. So the environment should be well organized. And you have seen the photo that we had talked about earlier about somebody who is multitasking, how the environment looks like. So the environment looks a bit clumsy. The environment looks dirty. The environment does not present an area where somebody should find it conducive for working. So you also have to organize your environment, both physical and social, for success, for support, and try to be creative. This organize your environment that you are working from. So choose carefully where you study and do other tasks, minimize distraction, and maximize focus. So you choose carefully where you study from and they do other tasks and then minimize distraction, but maximize the focus on these duties. Then use physical reminders. If you want to work out more, but are getting bogged down in email or Facebook, put your running shoes on top of your laptop. Make it harder to get off track and easier to stick to your plan by changing your environment. So you need to have the physical reminders of what should be done so that you still remain on track. You don't leave a track, you stick to your plan, you stick to your environment. Then instead of friends being a distraction, it's their support. So friends should not be a distraction. You need to find out what they bring in on the table in that environment. Now then we look at other principles, but and at this point in time, I've made quotations from very senior people in the world who have talked about time. And these quotes will also help us understand what is expected of us whenever you are dealing with the issues of time. So there are a number of quotations. There are 6 quotations, and I will go through with you in these quotations, but I want you to read the quotations on your own in a minute or so. Then we shall pick up again as I explain what these quotes mean. Now, you must have read the quotes there. And I just want to take time to take you through these quotes. So there is a quote that the first quote that is presented by, or was said by William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare is a writer of books and was one of the best writers of books in the 16th century. He wrote a number of books, and in one of his books he said that better to be 3 hours too soon than a minute too late. So it's better you go to a place 3 hours early than delaying for a minute. That's what William Shakespeare says, and it's a very interesting quote. Better to be 3 hours too soon than a minute too late. So what Shakespeare is saying here is it's not necessary that you reach the place 3 hours early whenever you are performing a task at a given place. It means that it's better you go early, some minutes early, 15 or 20 minutes to time, other than going there late. That's a powerful quote. Then quote number 2, the blue quote. The quote written in a blue box says, I must govern the clock, not to be governed by it. I must govern the clock and not to be governed by the clock. Very interesting that the clock And you know what a clock is. So you know what a clock is. So this clock is just so this is called Maya. So how do you take down which code? Let's find out. So when I you are participating, you need to put in mind that time does not wait for us. So time does not wait for anyone. So that's what like better to govern the clock than governing you. So that's better that good than time management. So you need to avoid. So then number three, if you six hours and I'll spend the first that was a product. So if you are, then what Abraham Lincoln saying before you Abraham Lincoln help us manage time. Then the shorter way to do many time. The fourth quote is that the shorter way to do many things is to only do one thing at a time. By Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So this is a very important quote too, and this is a quote about procrastination, postponing things. Say that the shorter way to do many things is to only do one thing at a time. We have talked about the question of procrastinating. We have now had a quote here that will guide us. So you take the shorter way. I mean, you will do many things when you take one activity at a time. Then we have Benjamin Franklin say that he that rises must trot all day. So if you wake up late and you have an activity to partake, then you'll have to work for the whole day to compensate the time that is lost. So he encourages us to keep time. So you need to keep time. The next is lastly, have regular hours for work and play. Make each day both useful and pleasant, and prove that you understand the worth of time by employing it well. Prove that you understand the worth of time by employing that time well. So use the time well. That's what he means. By using the time well, then you'll be showing that you value the time. So valuing time is a key component of our life. We are encouraged to value the time given. Now, that's our presentation for this morning. We have talked about a number of issues, principles of the time management. We have also looked at the quotes by the different scholars, the different personalities in the world, on how the time should be managed. So we shall stop there for today on this area. Then we shall pick up at another time during the day. So we stop there. Thank you for your time. Thank you for attending the session.